It's Kevin Owens, host of the Overseas Famous podcast, here to personally invite you to subscribe to our official Patreon. Are you guys ready to take your podcast experience to the next level? Well, with our Patreon, you can do just that. And the best part, pricing starts at just $1. It's like a pack of gum. Less per month. By becoming a Patreon member, you'll unlock a world of amazing perks. We're talking merch giveaways, signed items by our guests, shout outs on the podcast, exclusive content, and so much more. Not only will you guys get to connect with me and the Overseas Famous community on a deeper level, but you'll also gain access to behind the scenes content and early episode releases. So don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Join our Patreon today and become part of the Overseas Famous family. Together, we will make podcast history. Thank you for your support and can't wait to see you on Patreon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the Overseas Famous podcast. I'm Kevin Owens, joined by Andre Roman. Andre played professional basketball player, played in Armenia, played in plenty of different places. We're going to get into that along with his journey throughout his life. Andre, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, man. Also wanted to wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yep.
So
a little late, but I hope you enjoyed that, man.
I did. 43. It was the first time my daughter was laying in bed and I went and tucked her in and stuff, and she's 10, and I'm sitting there talking to her before bed, and she's like, "Tomorrow's your birthday." I was like, "I know," and I was like, "It's gonna be fun." And she turns to me and she's like, "Dad, you're getting old." I was like, "Shit." It was like that first time where like she's having that recognition, like, "You're kind of old, like stop getting old." I was like, "Oh Christ." I was like, "Liv, my knees are already old, don't worry about it."
Right. I bet, man.
So going into your journey, you've played plenty of different places. You've gone from college, you from Texas, move on, and then playing professionally. When you have to make those changes from like the college game, the pro game, and different countries, what are the biggest changes you faced playing this game into the professional level?
Definitely I would say skill level as you go gradually from I would say high school to college. That's definitely something that stays consistent is the skill level. But what I learned was the biggest one, transitioning from college to the pro level would definitely be mentally and physically. Yeah, man.
It does. It's the mental aspect. No one prepares you for that. I always say with young players, you can tell a young player 1,000 times, like even what we're doing with post-career stuff and helping athletes post-career, you can tell them 1,000 times, like when you retire, shit's going to be hard. And regardless, they're like, okay. And then when they get there, they're like, oh shit. You can only prepare mentally so much until you take that step, and everyone's going to have to evolve once they take that step. And that's what I always say. Like those are what leads to the players who make it overseas and the players who try and like it doesn't work, because it's just when you mentally say, you know what, this is going to be a change, it's going to be crazy, you can adapt and adjust. And I think that's just what you're saying, like the physicality, the mental side. It's just such a different thing to overcome.
Definitely so, man. One thing that always comes to mind, it was my rookie year. I was in Moldova, and there was a guy there. I think he was like 5 years into his career. And man, the first thing he told me was, "I'm gonna fire you out of the game." And I was like, blah blah blah. I didn't really believe him. I'm just ready to, it's your first year trying to prove yourself. And sure enough, he kept bumping me. When I bump him, it's one of those things where they saw me and they never saw him, man. And next thing you know, 3 fouls later, I'm out of the game, taken out, missed the whole entire first half. And after that, on my way to the bench, he started laughing at me. Like, "I told you, I got you," And after the game, he talked to me and stuff and told me exactly what he was doing. And I said, "Oh, okay, I get it. It's mentally and on another level as well."
Oh yeah, I think there's always that import help out. Like the Americans after the game, you're like, I got you, but here's why I got you. Here's what you need to do. Because I always say, like, when you're a team overseas, like you're with this group of guys who are your teammates, but you aren't on a second team in terms of like you're also an import, and that's kind of your second team. So you're always look out for the other guys. Like we used to hang out imports from when we were in a big city and there's 10 different teams. We all used to hang out because the same time you're kind of like looking out for each other because we're all part of this journey together. So I think that's an incredible thing when you're able to see an athlete who plays against you be like, listen, this is why I did it. I'm here to help you as well as your team. But guess what? We're all in this together. That's a really cool thing to experience.
That's very true. I completely agree with that, and that makes a lot of sense because after that, actually, we grew more of a relationship together. Every game, he would tell me, "Hey, you got to do this. You want longevity in this, profession. This is how you have to do these things." And he really showed me, more of the ropes of how to be a true professional as well.
So you have when we talk about a point guard, I'm like in coaching terms, I always look at the point guard as the most important position. You have the bigs, obviously, they're like kind of the grunt work. That's what I had to do. You're like, you got to be tough, you got to be crazy, a little bit crazy, you got to go in there rebound. You got the wings who are just going to go. You got your shooters who are going to shoot, but your point guard is like that quarterback. Like he's got to make sure that everything is running according to the plan. And you have done remarkable things in terms of your skill, your speed, your athleticism, your ability to pass. How have you utilized like your size and physical attributes to your advantage when you're heading overseas, when you are playing against guys where you're like, okay, I'm probably faster than this guy. They might be a little taller, but guess what? I'm going to work. What advantages did you have to find and adapt to when you headed overseas?
Just finding it's very detailed in that aspect. Just finding little ways to create space. Working on different type of as far as workouts, working on not your ordinary workouts, working on things where maybe I can create more space by bumping the person, being a little bit more stable in my core, being a little bit more balanced and stuff like that. So definitely just trying to make the little things happen. Maybe being better on the IQ side as well. That's something as well that you can't be just gifted as in size or height. Being a little smarter with the game, learning how to read screens, learning how to, when to go over, when to go under, know if he's a shoot, just little things like that. More on the IQ side definitely has helped me, gain those edges on the player who's probably just like me, but 6'3" or 6'4", and, a little bigger.
I like the because I always compare point, like I said, with point guards and quarterbacks, and the best quarterbacks in the NFL are the guys who are like constantly evolving their IQ. You can have a guy who can throw 700 yards on the fly, but unless you can adapt your IQ to figure it out, everyone's going to catch up. You're talking about the best athletes in the world. It's kind of what you're saying. You have to adapt your IQ. Your IQ has to constantly be growing. And that's the difference between points and idiots like me who just you're gonna have to keep getting better. You're gonna have to work on different things, and your IQ will improve. And like, okay, how am I going to rebound this? But not so much on the point guard side. It's more like, all right, go down there. I have to work on this rebounding. This guy's going to go here in this post move. But for a point guard, not only that, you are facilitating the entire offense. So you got to be able to control other people too. Like I was only controlling myself. You are in charge of controlling four other guys on the floor along with what you need to do to be successful. And that's what my favorite thing about a point guard is. And that's what I teach young players who are point guards. Like they get my leadership role immediately. Like give them more responsibility off the bat.
Yeah, I agree. Being at 6'10", you get the privilege of just worrying about yourself. Sit down there and just be ready.
Just you got to have that like mentality of like, all right, you're gonna get hit, you're gonna get punched, you're gonna get elbowed, you're gonna lose some teeth. I've lost teeth, scars all over. I'm like, I'm good. That's like what I was bred for. But like that's the thing. You don't have to worry about other people as much. Just go and grind.
Yes, I agree with that.
So you playing professionally in different countries, in different cultures, you've been able to establish yourself in the very diverse situations. Has your experience like influenced your overall development as a player in terms of like, I've had to play this style here, this style here, this style here? How has that overall helped you develop as a player?
Basically just becoming more adaptive to certain situations, learning what's needed from team to team. Your role in one team is not necessarily going to be the same in the other. And it has a lot to do with the coaching style as well. So you got to just as a player, it is your job. So you got to be, you got to adapt to what the coach wants, what the system they have, and what type of player and what they ask from you as well. I've been in some teams where they ask me as a to be the premier, of course, ball handler, but the scorer as well. I've been in others where they just want me to set up a big or get the shooters open, and stuff like that. So it all depends, and it's a case by case, team by team situation.
And that is, again, we talk about your ability to raise your IQ when you're being told as a point guard. Like I said, bigs, you just go, okay, score, rebound, idiot,
Yeah.
go. Like point guards, you're adjusting
Yes.
to everything. A coach could be like, listen, I like my point guard to run this pick and roll. I like my point guard to hit open threes. I like my point guard to dribble the ball and not shoot. You're involved in all of these different things as a point guard. So you have to adjust your game time and time again. Was there a time when you were doing that where you're like, this is getting frustrating, or it allowed you to kind of feel comfortable with your role? Did you feel different times where you're very comfortable with your role and feel other times where you're like, this is not exactly what I'm meant to do?
Yeah, so actually that was a big difference between my first year and my second year. When I first came out, man, it was kind of just having an import there. It was during the COVID time as well, so it was very, you know, thin on imports. So it was just pretty much the green light for me. Everything just for me to take over, to do what I have to do for us to get the win, lead the team scoring and everything else. My second year was a little different. A few more imports on the team, a few, bit better players as well, to be honest. And so I had to take a little step back. And sometimes it's a little challenging because you want to, continue to be in control, I guess, and be scoring the most and doing stuff like that. But yeah, it was a little challenging at first, but at the same time, you got to understand that it is a job and you got to do it. That's what comes with it. That's the changes that comes with it.
Especially as we're in such an analytical time of the world in terms of professional sports. You talk about
Mhm.
like the greatest ever comparisons, and a lot of it, some of them have to do with, okay, look at his stats, look at his stats, but like look at his killer, look at his killer, like a lot of that. So you have this whole analytical side, and when you're up for another job, a lot of times there's not as much research done they'll look at stats and be like, okay, then they'll ask questions, but everyone's looking at stats first. So when you're in a situation where you have to be a facilitator as opposed to a scorer, and people are looking at stats, and your stats might not be as inflated as a guy who gets a green light every single time. How do you handle that? Is that a conversation you've had with your management, your agent, to say, hey, this is what I do, make sure that they know this going in, because this is the job that I want, but my stats might be a little deflated because I'm a team first kind of guy?
Correct. Yes, that definitely has been something that with the current management I'm with been talked about, considering some teams, and it does go team by team as well. Sometimes a team is looking for a score first point guard, some teams are looking for a pass for first point guard as well. So that's just been something, I guess, when I'm getting put out there as well, shopped around, showing that I can do a little bit of both. There's been games where I could go 27, for example. My first year I had 27, like 9-7, I believe, in semifinals game, and there's been times where I have 12, 10 assists, maybe a few steals and 5 rebounds. So it kind of gives me that diversity to just show what I can, and I can do what's asked of me at least.
That European point guard, everyone can dribble, and I always look at like
Yeah.
the Lucas, like you got these big tall point guards who can handle the ball, but they're not necessarily the quickest guys, but they're just very, very, like you said, high IQ, and they can control the game. And it's one of those point guards where if you can't get the ball from them, like you can pressure them all you want, and they just don't turn the ball over. Have you encountered that in your travels with playing in some of these point guards who just seem to just have the ball stuck to their hands and just always seem to me making the right play in European basketball?
Definitely so. And those are more of those who are a little more up in age, been doing this for a long period of time. I've definitely encountered those, and they know the system, they know that style of play, and throughout the years they mastered that. So definitely, going back to a semifinals game I was telling you about, I played a point guard exactly like that, man. Never lost the ball, knew exactly where to put it. Nothing too fancy, nothing that you could look at and be wild about, but he knew how to do it. He was very controlled, and most importantly, he knew how to control the pace of the game. So that was tough. That was tough.
That's yeah, those are the toughest guys to play. Like with the some of those like just fundamentally sound dudes.
Yeah.
Even like in the post, you would have guys and they would just like turn and shoot like this, and you're like, that's a miss. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, how did that go in? And it's like
Yeah,
every
for
single
real.
time, you're like, come on, dude. This is getting a little out of hand. When
I bet.
what in terms of your point guard, the one of the biggest issues I always had is adjusting not only to the style of play, but like what is the leadership role on the team? You're going to a team that obviously, besides the American players, everyone else has been playing together for years and years, and maybe half of their lives or their whole lives. And you just are, we're just like placed in to fill these holes. So when you are a point guard and you have to establish your leadership and running the team, how do you handle that when you go into a situation where the team's already established and this guy's considered the leader, but you have to kind of take over as that floor general? How do you handle that when you walk into a new situation?
I think first off, just establish what the main goal is and know that it's a common goal with him as far as winning. You're not here to steal his shine, so to speak, or steal his spot. You're here to win. And hopefully, I'm hoping, and I would be assuming, most of the times the guys on your team, that's the same goal. It's the common goal to win and get something, get close to a championship, or if not win a championship. So that's just the main thing, establishing, being that winning is the ultimate goal. And once you gain the trust, once you put the work in, once they see that you're here, and trying to be the best you can be, every time, at least for me, it's worked out. You gain their trust, and you can, you get the privilege of being able to yell at them, get the best out of them, and them not take it in the wrong way.
Have you ever been in a situation where you butted heads a little bit? Has there been a player that you've been like, damn, like he's not, he kind of wants the ball in his hand. He kind of wants to take over, take that shine. Cause I know I've been in situations where
Oh
I've tried
yeah.
to establish myself as a leader. And then guys are like, no, like I've been doing this for a long time. And I'm like, yeah, but
Yeah.
we're not winning your way.
Yeah,
Have
exactly.
you encountered something like that?
I have, man. And I've even encountered that with imports as well, other
Yeah.
imports. Yeah, and I feel like most of the time it is other imports, that feel that way, which is crazy. But for the for locals and stuff that I ran into like that, I have, and I just always, for example, I was with a guy and I told him, man, it's not a competition between me and you. It's me and you and the team against them, you know. And he was, I make a shot and shoot, or he got to get the ball and shoot the next possession, and it's nothing like that, man. So you do run into that, but it's just all about how you handle it and making sure you talk to your teammates, the right way, and try to find that common ground where we don't have to be best friends, but when we're on the court, we are teammates, and let's do what we have to do to win.
We always talk about like the personal life and your off court or like your on court life. You almost have to
Hmm.
live two different lives.
For sure.
You're trying to establish yourself. You're trying to be a tourist. You're trying to enjoy the experience, but at the same time, like you got to build that camaraderie. How has your off the court relationships been in terms of like your ability to hang with all of the players and get them involved? Because I know sometimes you're coming in a situation and people have families and you're walking in, you're like, hey, let's like get something
Yeah.
together. Let's get off the court together. And they're like, no, like this isn't going to work. I have a family. You're walking into a situation of all of these different lifestyles. Have you been able to
Hmm.
foster those relationships off the court to help you guys on the court?
For the most part, yeah. For the most part, we've all gotten together at some point and go out and catch a bite. Being somewhat of a tourist, as you mentioned, you do have. They always pretty much want to accommodate you and say, "Hey, let me show you around the city" or something of that sort. And it is harder, as you mentioned, for the guys who do have a family. Those who do have a family, they tend not to come out as much, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in a situation it was the same thing. We had to every time we'd go out. And I mean, I was kind of winding down. I was like towards the end of my career, but we were all hanging and like some of the married guys were like, nope, nope. So we finally were like dragging dudes out, being like, all right,
Yeah.
let's hit it. And like those are the guys who end up being the most fun. Like I think there's always a reason why some dudes were like,
Yeah.
all right, you're not going out because when you go out, you
Hmm.
become like the life of the party. So the family's like, nope, nope, not happening until we finally
Hmm.
drag him out. And they're like, wow, this dude is the life.
Yeah.
They
See a
gotta
whole
go.
different side, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah. You see a whole different side of them. Yeah, it's on that end, it's been good for me, man. I haven't really run into anybody who was, you know, not willing to go out and show me around the city. Or I usually just try to keep it cool with everybody. You know, we're not there for a long time. We try to make it the
Yep.
best as we can. So it's always been a good experience on my end.
Throughout your journey, who has been your biggest inspiration or role model in the game of basketball?
In the game of basketball, actually, this is kind of crazy. It's a little twist to this. But one of my biggest inspirations actually passed away about 6 months ago. And he didn't. The funny thing is, he played professionally, but he played in the MLB. He played baseball.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it was crazy, man. He had his whole journey, and he's a cousin of mine. I never spoke to him growing up. I see him at family gatherings, um, and I never really spoke to him. High and by, high and by, high and by. When it came to a point in my life where I was actually transferring from my first school that I attended to another school, played bigger teams, and just a bigger stage. Um, he was the only one out of my entire family that told me, "Hey, if you really want to do something beyond, the college level, you need to make this transition." All my family is convinced, no, don't leave, don't move, don't leave. He encouraged me to do it. So from that point, I transferred, man. My first year after I transferred, we won a national championship. After that, one of my teammates who was a senior at the time, his agency, I spoke with them. That's how I ended up getting my first opportunity, was with them. And so it was crazy, man. He guided me pretty much through the whole journey up until where I'm at today. And so yeah, definitely would like. And his name was Ryan. So I definitely would like to shout him out. And that's probably my inspiration for sure in this journey.
It's always great when the people who inspire you, they might not even know they inspire you. And I
Hmm.
think that's probably the biggest thing that you could give to a person when you don't even realize what you're doing every day inspires someone to be this incredible athlete or this incredible whatever they choose to be just by being you. I think that's like one of the biggest things you could do, or one of the biggest recognitions when it's just you being you and someone's like, wow, look what you've done for me. You're like, oh shit, like I just was trying to be me, just trying to help out a little bit. But those are the
Yeah,
best.
man.
That's the best way to do it. And that's like
Definitely.
always like a pass it on thing. Like, okay, what did he do? What did I look at? Now how can I pass it on?
Exactly. And I think that's one thing that he did was just throughout his journey, he was trying to show me what not to do and what to do. And it definitely helped, man, especially during the COVID time where, people were sitting out. I hadn't got nothing. I was almost on the verge of like, should I hang it up? Because it was a
Uh-huh.
year and a half, and was still nothing. But every single day, he was that person that, you always have that person that keeps you in check. He was
Yeah.
always that person who kept me accountable every morning, 5, 6 in the morning. Get up, it's time to go, put the work in, you got to go. And yeah, man, lo and behold, it happened. And what 3 years later, we're continuing the journey. So that definitely was a blessing.
So take me through. You have done a good job, not only on the court, but of creating a whole entire and establishing a whole uh, chapter of your life off the court, which you are able to bring back with the Andre Roman camps and all of the things that you're doing back home. Tell us how that started and how that's become what it's become, because that's what we always like to see is athletes who are currently playing, but establishing their second act while they're still playing. How did you establish that and start creating this whole entire empire that you're building?
Basically, just by trying to fill in a void, filling something that wasn't there on my upbringing. I never had that in my upbringing, and I always had to do my fair of travels and stuff like that. But that I always told myself now that I was here that I was going to make this happen. And man, it's just been great. It started off with a few campers coming into my first camp, and it's always been the purity, of everything. Just doing being a genuine person and having a genuine goal, so to speak. So yeah, man, it started off with a few campers. During the COVID break, we ended up feeding people throughout COVID from the organization that I do have. Our second camp ended up getting 100 campers. Our third camp, 120 campers, and just through the years, it's just grown and it's grown. Just because we've done our best just to put on a good opportunity for all the kids and all the youth of not only my area, which is West Texas, but in the state of Texas, man. We've drawn in some people from around the state, and it's just been great. It's just been great. And what continues to drive me is just to continue to inspire, to continue to inspire, because one day I am going to hang it up. One day I would love to see someone else pick up, not necessarily basketball, but something of their dreams that they're able to give back as well.
And it is great when you are taking something and your camp has grown from like one location to now multiple locations. That's incredible because
Yeah.
that's now you're franchising what you're doing and you're creating this whole entire thing. Like you said, it's spreading throughout Texas. So it was just like one location. Now you're in Dallas. You're in many different locations in
Yeah.
Texas, and that's the best thing when you can start expanding your camp. Like most people guys run a camp, and it's like here it is. This is in this area. Yours is expanding and growing because you're teaching the right things,
Correct. Yeah,
and that's
it's definitely been a great one, and it's always a team. It's always a team behind everything, and thankfully, I have a really good team that helps me in many ways. And we've been able to go from West Texas to in El Paso, which is considered West Texas, to my hometown, Pecos, which is the main camp. Dallas. It's been a little bit of everywhere, man, and we're continuing to grow. So that's definitely a plus, just to see that what we're putting out is what the kids are accepting. So it's definitely great on that end.
how did, and this is just a little Texas question because
Hmm.
obviously there is obviously a very talented basketball level coming from Texas, but when you're growing up in those West Texas and you have football is just these guys are getting arenas and they're playing footballs in arenas, and
Yeah.
you're kind of like, all right, well, I play basketball, I'll probably make it further than a lot of these guys, but you know, is that a competition when you're just like, or was it just like everyone plays football and then everyone ends up playing, someone will play something else too?
Yeah, well, it all depends what part of Texas. Texas is big, as you know. So in my part of Texas, which is West Texas, everybody plays football. It's mostly like, for example, I went to a small school, so mostly everybody in my school played football, basketball, baseball, everything. But yes, definitely football is the powerhouse, man.
It
You
is
and it can be discouraging being a basketball player and everybody cares about football.
It
But
is. It's like when you look at certain areas, that's like what you think of. You're like, okay,
mhm,
that's like a football area. When you look at other places, you might think basketball. Other places, there's soccer,
very
but
true.
like when you have that ability to kind of be like, all right, it's easy to differentiate, but at the same time, it's like it's pretty cool to be part of something where it's just this whole community and everyone's just like
Yes.
obsessed with the sport.
Is involved, correct? Have you ever seen the movie Friday Night Lights?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's like an hour away from me. So you can imagine what it's like in my area. Yeah, 45 minutes an hour away. So yeah,
That's great.
that's West Texas football.
So you have obviously established your camps, you've established yourself as a player overseas. When you look at the overall overwhelming situations and how do you continue or plan to continue progressing and maximizing your potential as a player as you go through the rest of your career while maintaining all of the other things that you are building?
I just keep a few things in my mind. One thing at the top of my head would definitely be it's one thing to get there, it's another thing to stay there, and it's another thing to continue to the next level. So now that I'm here, that's great. It's a dream come true, of course. I literally remember writing notes about playing overseas when I was in seventh grade. And that's great. I got here, I built here. Now I want to continue to build, continue to grow, and make it of course, something more than just of myself. More than just being a basketball player. And that's where the camps come into play. That's where brands come into play, and that's where just expansion. And using basketball as a vehicle to get to different places that I would like to get to.
You've hit it. That is a great saying because that is professional sports in a nutshell. It's like one thing to get there. That's hard enough. And I always talked about like when I first started, I was in the D League and we had all these symposiums and stuff. And it's like, hey, when you get here, you're going to be, put your money in this or think about the future. I'm like, I'm making $12,000 a year and I'm not even on the fucking team. Like, what are you talking about? Like, my mind was not there at all. So
Yeah,
as you go, but then you said it's like the same thing. Okay, now how do you maintain? How do you maintain? Because every year you have thousands and thousands of people trying to steal your spot.
you
So
do.
while you're maintaining, you also have to figure out like how am I going to progress? Like how am I? So you get in your foot in the door, you maintain, and then you progress. People don't realize that those three steps are all extremely. I mean, just getting there is you're part of the 0.02% of the population that can make it to where we made it. Then maintaining it, like to play for more than a year, that's even harder. And to progress, to keep moving up in the leagues is just, or even moving up in like an NBA player, getting more championships. People don't understand that, and I think how you just articulated that was absolutely perfect, because that's what pro sports is in a nutshell: get in, maintain, progress, and you should put that on a shirt. That's like a really good slogan.
I had to call champion on that one. Yes, sir.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Andre, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight, just through your career, what you stand for, what you've done to get there, what you're doing to maintain, and what you're doing to progress. So we're really excited to have you on, and I thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, man. Continue this platform. This is great. I always look forward to seeing what you put out, and it's definitely a great thing.
Thank you so much. This has been the Overseas Famous Podcast with Andre Roman. I'm Kevin Owens. We'll see you guys next week.
Sir.